To the point, informative, entertaining, and protecting the Second Amendment. Welcome back to Elfster's Rifles Reloading. And we are finally to the point of shooting our 6.5 Grendels. And I just got my 12-inch PSA upper 6.5 Grendel. And Scott, why don't you go over your 6.5 Grendel?
This is a 20-inch stainless steel barrel PSA upper and lower. And I've got a 5x25 Venom Vortex scope.
Yeah, and that's the new Vortex Venom FFP scope that just came out. Very affordable. You can easily get it for under $500, usually about $499. Once in a while, I'll post some deals on my Facebook page. With promo code, you can easily get this down to roughly $460. It's a lot of bang for your buck optic. And he also, I can't remember, you got this as a complete rifle, or did you buy the upper and lower separately?
I bought the upper and lower separate.
Yeah. And your fitment between the upper and lower is just phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good.
I mean, there is not an ounce of wobble on mine. And I'm actually using my 5.56. Really, there's no specific lower, but this is my PSA AR pistol lower that's got a SBA 3 brace on it. And I actually use this lower for not only my 10.5-inch 5.56 PSA upper, but also my 7.62 by 39. And now my 6.5 Grendel, so I can use this on 3 total different cartridge uppers. And mine is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I say there's not an ounce of wobble in this. There is not. And the same goes for you. I mean, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yep. And his came with the MOE grip, which is really nice. It has storage capabilities in it. I also have the same one. Also the adjustable Magpul buttstock. We might possibly upgrade that, you think? Probably to the Luth MBA 3 maybe, or maybe get you a cheek riser or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to get something on there with a QD, or we got to figure something out for Sling, because he's going to actually use this for deer hunting. And we have 2 different scopes here that we're going to try and zero today if we got the time. Obviously, his Vortex Venom 5-25, but you also have the Strike Eagle, the 1-8. What's really nice about these new Strike Eagles coming out is they have this new reticle on them. And I'm probably going to steal this from Scott when he's not looking, because I got the old one that's got the crappy reticle, and I'm sure Scott's not going to mind me doing that at all.
I don't think that'll happen.
So anyway, but yeah, we got a lot of things to do today, and today is about fireforming brass. If you watch that live reloading series of teaching Scott how to reload for a 6.5 Grendel, check out my video playlist. I believe it was 4 parts, right? 3 parts. 3 parts with teaching Scott how to reload. I also did my own live reloading for my 6.5 Grendel with a 12-inch upper. And we have a collection of ammunition here, and also some really inexpensive wool steel case ammunition. We might shoot this day, we might not. I'm not totally sure. You know, this is, in my opinion, kind of the ultimate, depending on how it shoots, the ultimate, not only brush deer rifle, but a really close quarters combat rifle that is ultra precise. Obviously, it's using those 6.5mm bullet flavors, and it should be pretty amazing. But if you guys watch that live reloading series, we're just fireforming brass. You took out 2 pieces of brass and you shot 2 pieces, and it fireformed clear up to 217. Well, this new Starline brass, if you guys happen to watch it, and if you missed it, you might want to go back and watch that live reloading series after you watch this video, is that new Starline brass is starting at 1.207. Well, when Scott shot those 2 pieces of factory ammo, that brass, no joke, expanded clear up to 1.217. We're talking 10,000ths of an inch expansion on that brass, which is insane. And that was on just 1 fire of the brass. It expanded that much. And that is definitely not what's considered precision in the precision reloading world. Usually from Fireform, you're going to bump that back 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch for a semi-automatic. And you're literally talking an 8 thousandths of an inch difference of where we're going to eventually bump it to where we're starting out with on this new brass. And that's insane. When you have a 10 thousandths of an inch difference from where it's starting on new brass to where it fireforms, that brass has to expand 10,000 inches to seal off so the gases don't escape around that casing. And when it has to expand that much, you're definitely not talking precision in the precision world. And that's, like I said, our main goal today is really not testing the accuracy of these firearms. It's more about getting fireform brass, zeroing out our scopes, adjusting our gas blocks. And we got a special tool that came with these PSA uppers. And just getting through these 50 pieces so we have fireform brass so we can specifically bump that back 2,000 to 3,000 an inch. That's really it. We also got to get on these Magpul bipod mount adapters here so we can use a Harris bipod. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff we got to get done today, and I figured you guys could join us on this adventure. Let's get this going. All right, so we got our Magpul bipod adapters on here. My screws on my Magpul bipod adapter cleared the barrel easily, but at least with Scott's, we definitely had to grind down the rear screw. Name of the game with these bipod adapters, if you are going to run something like a Harris bipod, is to get that bipod as far forward on that handguard as possible. And you can see, at least with Scott's here with his bipod adapter, that we had to grind down that one screw because otherwise it would have hit his gas block. And it's really easy. We just grind it down with a grinder and got that mounted. So before I head out to the range here, I'm going to quick Borescope both of these and just kind of see where we're at before we take those shots. Now, one of the first things you should always do before you pull the trigger the first time on that new firearm is to make sure you clean that bore in the chamber. Whether or not you believe in barrel break-in processes of, you know, fire, take one shot, clean it, take another shot, clean it, take another shot, clean it, and then take 3 rounds, clean it, take 3 rounds, clean it, blah, blah, blah. Some people do it, some people don't. I might suggest it on a really high-end firearm, you know, but I used to do it back in the day. I just don't do it anymore. But I always recommend cleaning that bore and the chamber before you take that first shot. The reason why is if there's any metal filings in there from the rifling cut process or button pull process, you want to make sure those are completely out of the bore before that first bullet goes down the bore. And so I cleaned mine. I know, Scott, you didn't clean yours, did you, when you took your
Not the first two.
First 2 shots? You didn't do that. I did marginally clean this, but I figured we'd take a bore scoping of both of these and just kind of compare the two. And these were purchased at roughly the same time. At least Scott's was purchased, and also, to be totally honest, this upper 12-inch upper from PSA was sent to me for free for T&E purposes. But just to check out mine on the 12-inch barrel. Now, this hasn't been fired yet, and I'm going to patch you guys in right now. So I'm going to get this on film mode. All right, so you are witnessing this through the Borescope itself, and this is the 12-inch Grendel, yet to be fired. You can see that that bore is as shiny as can be. Crown looks really, really good. And I'm going to gauge this gas port. Should be somewhere right around here. All right, so here's the gas port on the 12-inch, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go down and inspect the lands. All right, so this is the lands on the 12-inch. Now you can see we've got some pretty aggressive lands here on that side, and then on this side of the bore, they're not as aggressive. So to be honest with you, PSA, I'm not totally impressed with that. Usually on your higher end barrels like Bartling and Krieger, obviously I know this isn't that, but you can see that the lands on this side of the chamber feather out really nice. They're not as aggressive, but when we start getting to the other lands, they don't compare. They're not the same. Very aggressive all the way to the start of the chamber. And that's interesting. I'm curious to see what it looks like on Scott. So this is the 12-inch upper. And here's the neck of the chamber, body of the chamber, start of the chamber. So yet to be fired. Now let's check out Scott's here. So here is Scott's. So here's Scott's crown. Like I said, he shot this twice, so you can see there's a little copper following there. We did marginally clean this, get most of the carbon out, but there's still some copper just from 2 rounds being fired. So his crown looks really, really good. So I'm going to gauge his gas port somewhere right around there. So here's his gas port. You can see how his has some rifling left on the gas port where mine was completely clipped off. So let's go down and check out his lands. So this is Scott's 20-inch upper, and kind of the same thing. You can see that these lands here are way more aggressive all the way to the start of the bore, while these other lands over here feather out a heck of a lot more on the other side, and definitely not consistent on the lands. So hopefully that doesn't affect our accuracy much. But then again, it really does boil down to simply how does it shoot. But usually on your higher end barrels, like my Krieger over here for my RPR, I did check that out. All these lands are super consistent on how they start from the beginning of the bore. So not really impressed on how this was chambered and the rifling was cut, at least for the lands. So, but then again, it all really is about how it shoots. Well, we are out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of Gilmanton. I believe that's where we're at, right?
Gilmanton, Wisconsin.
And thanks to his brother-in-law, Jackson, he's letting us shoot out his land because it seems like we've been driving around all morning trying to find a place to shoot. We went out to our typical 300-yard range, and it's shut down for a 3-gun competition. So we had to find an alternative source. So once again, thanks, Jackson, for letting us shoot out at your range. But it's kind of cool here, out in the middle of a cornfield here. We got a nice 100-yard stretch. We got this walked off, and we're gonna try and kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Now we're gonna zero in Scott's 20-inch 6.5 Grendel upper, but we're also gonna adjust the gas block at the same time. All right, so we got this marginally bore sighted in. We're gonna take our first shot, and we are gonna adjust this gas block out 2 full rotations from being completely closed off. So let me get this together here, and we'll take our first shot. And Scott is using these AR Stoner mags. I personally have Duramags, which I believe is a C Products magazine. I also have some Islander magazines, but we're gonna be using the AR Stoners with Scott's. So yeah, let's take our first shot and get this gas block adjusted. By no means is this bench precise. I mean, it's pretty wobbly. So once again, we are not going for precision or bug hole groups here today. We're just getting Fireform brass. Remember, this brass is expanding damn near 10/1000ths of an inch. So we can Fireform that brass and bump it back roughly 2 to 3/1000ths of an inch. So right now I'm gonna adjust his gas block. I've verified that this is cleared. There's no magazine here. There's nothing in the chamber. And I am gonna adjust this so righty-tighty to the point where this is completely closed off. So that's completely closed off. As I was turning that, I could notice some really nice detents on this PSA adjustable gas block. And that's nice. You want to feel those detents, and especially so that it doesn't come loose over repeat fire. And what I like to do is use this tool as a marker. I can see that this is pointing directly at me. And when I start out adjusting a gas block, usually I go 2 full rotations from completely closed. So righty-tighty, this is completely closed. So I'm going to go lefty-loosey 1 rotation, lefty-loosey again another rotation. So it's 2 full rotations from completely being closed. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to take a shot. We're going to double check our zero. I'm almost guaranteeing that this bolt is not going to be in the lockback position. And then we're going to take another shot, play around with our zero, and I'm going to give this a half a turn. And then we'll go from there. So I'm kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So like I said, this isn't about precision. This is just about getting Fireform brass, zeroing, and adjusting the gas block. And I'm going to put up the range back here so we can catch our priceless brass. As a matter of fact, when this ejects, I am going to measure the headspace to see how much it's grown. All right, so the bolt did come back a little, and once you put it on safe there, my friend, and so you can see right here that the brass is sticking out. So once you run that action all the way back, pull on the charging handle, you might have lost this piece of brass. There's a good chance it's got a good dent in it. Actually, it's not bad. We can definitely deal with that. So I'm checking out the primers. If you look at this primer, it's a little flat. We're probably pushing the extremes of how much powder that we're dropping on this. But I don't see any cratered primer, so that's really good. So this is the very first shot, other than the two that I used to figure out what the Fireform is. I'm gonna see if this expanded up to 217. So this is 0 to out, and it's really freaking close. It's 1.216. So we're talking a thousandth of an inch. And this started out, no joke, at 1.207 and expanded all the way up to that. That's a heck of a lot to expand. That's definitely not precision ammunition. So I'm verifying that this chamber is completely clear, and we're gonna go lefty-loosey, half of a turn. And I'm using this part of the Allen wrench as a gauge. So this is pointing directly up, so I'm gonna give this a half a turn. So once again, just to show you, we're just say 1.207, and you're gonna watch this headspace expand damn near 10 thousandths of an inch. Better shit. Let me grab this other piece of brass out of here so I don't get it mixed in. So it looks like the brass, the bolt did lock back. The brass is still in the chamber. So let me clip you out here. So we still need to keep on adjusting this, but this did lock back. I can actually drop this magazine. So here's our piece of brass. I want to hold that for a second, Scott. And just to show you that this is zeroed out. Right there. Expanded exactly what his first two firings did. 1.2165. So we'll just say 217. Exactly that 217, and that's where getting Fireform brass is so important. All right, once again, firearm is cleared. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm actually amazed this isn't functioning yet. But go lefty-loosey, another half a turn, and I'll give that another shot. So let's go ahead and load her up there, Scott. Like I said, I'm amazed this actually isn't ejecting already. What the hell? I'm just gonna double check your extractor. See, make sure there's nothing wrong with your extractor. So, I mean, you got good tension on the ejection spring. Extractor doesn't look broken or nothing. Now, in an effort to figure out what the heck is going on with my 12-inch 6.5 Grendel, and Scott purchased his 6.5 20-inch upper 6.5 Grendel roughly the same time, a couple of weeks before that. And I found this interesting that it's not running as smooth as my 18-inch 6.5 Grendel that I got roughly 2 years ago. This thing runs like an absolute top sewing machine for sure. I have absolutely no issues with this thing whatsoever. So I was kind of blown away why we're having such ejection issues. So I pulled the bolt out of my 18-inch that I got roughly 2 years ago. That's on the right here. And on the left is the bolt out of my 12-inch 6.5 Grendel that I just got a couple weeks ago. And right out of the gate, just to notice a few things. I notice on my old bolt, it's got a marking of MPI. And also on the extractor, it has no markings on it whatsoever. Now keep in mind, obviously, that this extractor and this bolt probably has, I'm going to guess, probably close to 500 rounds. But the new one is definitely different. Rather than saying MPI on the side, it just says 6.5 Grendel. And also on the extractor, it's got a little G sign, which I'm sure stands for Grendel underneath it. So you can see this one says G. This one has no marking on it. And just a shout out to Johnny's reloading bench.
It just absolutely binds like crazy. That is a whole lot better. Not only did they all just run, but they were all ejecting a lot farther than they were earlier at the range.
This is where I actually decided to look into these extractors. He actually has a video on a 6.5 Grendel series that he did roughly 4 or 5 years ago. And he noted how aggressive this extractor was, not so much in regards to pulling out the casing, but allowing that casing to release and be ejected. And sure enough, I pulled out a fresh piece of brass, brand new brass, out of the Starline reloading brass here, and I noticed it definitely has good bite on it, but when it comes to actually ejecting it, I notice it kind of wants to bind up a little bit as this is pulled out of the chamber and should allow it to release. But I noticed that this wants to bind up pretty good. And I don't know if that's our problem. It's definitely something I'm going to look into. But I mean, so much to the point where I can do this. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that's part of the issue. But I mean, I can easily repeat this. And how aggressive this holds on to the casing. This should be just falling off. And I'm putting not a lot of force on this, but this should be falling off already. Just to show you, grab another piece here, random piece out of this bag. And once again, it wants to bind up on that casing and repeatable. You know, it's very, very aggressive. And I got a feeling the tips of this ejector is way too aggressive. And these need to be knocked down just like what Johnny's reloading bench did. He knocked these down and it worked out really smooth. And like I mentioned, this bolt in the extractor probably has close to 500 rounds on it, but it definitely doesn't have that aggressiveness in regards to allowing that casing to release as it's pulled out of the chamber and expelled and ejected. And, you know, I can try and repeat something like I just did there with the new, and it won't. I mean, I can't even get it to clip on there. I can try my best to do this. And I think that's just my problem, is I'm just going to have to knock down the corners of that ejector. I think that is definitely my issue. And I think that's a good reason why both Scott and I have identical issues in regards to ejecting that brass. Both purchased at the same time, and I'm sure he's got the exact same bolt as me. Now, Scott and I were able to get through all 50 pieces each. Like, our main objective was, like we mentioned in the live event, was get Fireform brass. And I'm a little concerned of how excessively this brass is Fireforming and how much it's growing. At least with Scott's, I gave him those 2 pieces of factory Hornady black ammunition. He just got this PSA 6.5 Grendel, and he's only fired 2 shots out of it just to get Fireform brass. We still have numerous things to do. First, right out of the gate, before we do anything, is we need to adjust that adjustable gas block, don't we?
Yeah, it's under gas. The first 2 rounds didn't eject properly.
Yeah, it didn't eject at all, really. I mean, I think
it got caught just as it was starting to come out.
I gave Scott 2 pieces of factory ammo. I said, go out and shoot these 2 pieces. Matter of fact, I'll bring up a picture of it here. Hornady black ammunition, factory ammo. And the headspace on this, at least with my calipers, not your calipers, came to 1.2085. And I gave him 2 pieces that I had left over out of the 4 pieces. As a matter of fact, I measured the other 2 pieces just to kind of prove a point. It came out to exactly the same headspace, 1.2085. And just to show you what it fireformed at, and I think you're going to be quite amazed by this, and that brass expanded once it was fired to, and I knocked this out. I made sure I used my FW Arms decapper to knock out that primer. It's super important to do that. It expanded to roughly 217. This is 2165. We'll just say 217. And this second piece of factory ammunition expanded to exactly 217. So just quick recap, the new factory ammo started at 1.2085. It fireformed at 1.217. We're going to try and go for a desired headspace bump of roughly 0.03 of an inch back from that at 214. But like I said, this new Starline brass headspace right out of the bag is 2065 to 2085. It actually does have a little bit of a range there of 0.02 of an inch, and I'm going to show that to you here in a little bit. So this is the first piece here. It's already lubed up, and just to show you that it's at 217 or 2065 here, and we got this to bump back everything to the low spectrum of this at 2065. So just run it through there. So this shouldn't have changed. This should still be 2065 because we got this die to set everything up to bump at least the headspace back all consistently across the spectrum. Remember, you're absolutely new, the headspace coming out of this bag ranged from 2065 to 2085. You're about to see that here in a little bit. So it didn't bump back the headspace on this, but what's more important is it got that neck tension back into spec. Even though it's most likely in spec right out of the bag, we want to ensure that it has consistent neck tension. So I'm going to set this off to the side here. So this one's on the high side, 2085. So that was at 2085, and that bumped it back to 2065. This one's already at 2065. If you're just joining us, this is brand new Starline brass. Got a little bit of a spectrum on the headspace out of this new brass. So still 2065. And it started out at 1.207 using my bump gauges. Remember, bump gauges don't show you the true headspace. They just give you a reference of where your brass starts and stops in regards to how much it fireforms at. I'm pretty sure if we were to do some very minor headspace bumps of maybe 1/1000 of an inch and resize that brass and kept on firing it to see what the true headspace would be, it'd probably be right at 0.100 of an inch, maybe even over. You truly don't know that until you get about 2 to 3 fires on that brass from Fireform. But at least with one fire, to watch it excessively go from 1.207 up to damn near 1.217, almost 0.100 of an inch, that's pretty excessive in my opinion. So once again, just to kind of prove a point, my calipers are zeroed out here. And before we fire this, just like that live event, this is 1.2065, just say 207. We're gonna watch this expand damn near 0.100 of an inch up to 217. I'm gonna grab these two pieces of brass out of here just so they don't get mixed in. All right, so that did cycle, but it did not eject the brass, so it's still in the chamber here. So we're gonna keep, that went up to 216, so really close. So you really need to fire brass numerous times, about 2 to 3 times to know for sure the true expansion, but this will get you pretty darn close. Once again, this is growing damn near 0.100 of an inch. All right, once again, firearm is cleared. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm actually amazed this isn't functioning yet. But go lefty-loosey, another half a turn, and I'll give that another shot. So, like I said, I'm amazed this actually isn't ejecting already. What the hell? That is so weird. Why is that not ejecting? That is so weird. Let me take this apart. I'm gonna see what the hell's going on. I'm just gonna double check your extractor. See, make sure there's nothing wrong with your extractor. So I mean, you got good tension on the ejection spring. Extractor doesn't look broke or nothing. Huh. That is so weird. Would think it'd be ejecting by now. You know, and I was also concerned about overpressure, dropping too much powder, being overgassed. If you're overpressuring that AR, that bolt can unlock early due to too much pressure building up in the chamber. And, you know, we dropped this Varget at 28.4, at least for my 12-inch 6.5 Grendel. And I think Scott did 28.5. And if you happen to watch that live reloading event of me teaching Scott how to reload for a 6.5 Grendel, and also my reloading event, reloading for my 12-inch 6.5 Grendel, we both loaded up ELDMs, 123 grains, and also SSTs in 123 grains. We both dropped Varget, and we dropped mine at 28.4 and his at 28.5. So roughly 4.4 to 0.5 grains under maximum. So yeah, we're kind of pushing that maximum, and I might back this off. Probably well under 28.0, maybe somewhere's down in the 27 point something range. And that's definitely an issue. It very well could be over gas, and that bolt is unlocking early because of it. I think it has something to do more with these extractors being too aggressive, but it's something definitely that I want to keep an eye out for. You know, I grabbed two miscellaneous pieces here, at least that was fired and manually ejected out of my AR, being that it wasn't functioning correctly. And so I got these calipers zeroed out here. And remember, this started out at 1.2065. We'll just say 1.207. And at least in my 12-inch upper, this expanded. And this piece started at 207. So 214. And 214, both identical. You know, like I said, if I was to do a minor 1/1000th of an inch bump back on this and resize it and fire it again, it'd probably be over that a little bit. I'm going to guess it's probably true Headspace Fireform size of roughly 215. It could be a little bit over that, but somewhere's around there. Matter of fact, we shot some steel case wolf ammunition out of my 12-inch, and I'm double checking these primers. They're not really sticking out at all. There's definitely no cratering, so I'm not worried about that affecting my headspace measurement. Also, this one here has no cratering, so I don't think that's going to skew my measurement whatsoever. And this comes out to 215. So this is probably, I'll measure this piece, 215. Like I mentioned, I bet money this is almost 216. I bet money if I was to resize this brass with a 1/1000th of an inch headspace bump and refire it, it'd probably be closer to this, maybe even a little over. So we're literally talking almost 10/1000ths of an inch of expansion during the fireform process. So that has me a little concerned. And I did bump these primers out just to make sure if there was any crater primers that it didn't skew that measurement. And let me grab two more miscellaneous pieces that I did not pop the primers out of. And in regards to looking for excessive signs of overpressuring here, these primers, they don't look super flat like a pancake. They actually look pretty decent. There's definitely no cratering of the primers. So in regards to the primers themselves, I don't see this as being any massive signs of overpressuring. You know, the brass looks really, really good for reloading, so I'm not totally concerned about that. So I just think it's something to do with this extractor, something that's binding up on here, and it's not allowing it to release. Like I said, I can repeat this process over and over. It just seems like it's binding up on that. I can physically feel that extractor binding up. I took the handguard off and expose this gas port just to make sure everything's running smoothly. In fact, I can blow through this. So it seems like that's wide open. But just to show you how this works for those guys that are absolutely new. In fact, you can see in here, you can see this little hole in here on this adjustable gas block. This plunger goes in and out, and this slides over the barrel and right over that porthole. So as the gases come down this tube, the gases escape through this hole and up through this hole of the adjustable gas block. And if this isn't timed just right, too far left, too far right, too far out, or too far in, that gas is not going to come up through this hole, through this porthole of the adjustable gas block. And just to show you some of the guys with the Borescope of how this specifically works. All right, so I'm going to screw this adjustment all the way in, and I'm going to patch you guys in right now. So this is recording, and I'm going to screw this in. So you can see as I screw this in, that plunger is suffocating that porthole. And that's completely shut off, so it's completely shut. So I'm gonna rotate this just to give you an idea. This is 1 full revolution, 2 full revolutions, 3, and a little over 3 is a little bit past halfway of opening up that hole. This is 4, and roughly about 4.5, it's completely open. So anything past 4.5 is kind of wasted. So if you hit 5, especially past 5, you are going to be completely wide open on that port. All right, so we got Scott over here with his PSA, and I got his bolt in front of us. I just wanted to double check to see how aggressive this was on this brass. And it is really, really aggressive. It's definitely nothing like my PSA 18-inch 6.5 Grendel, where this just peels right off. It binds up a lot right here. And just like mine, you know, it will stay on that extractor. Let me grab another piece here. And yeah, I think we're gonna have to knock down corners of this extractor for sure. If you would take a wild guess, out of the 50 reloads that we shot, how many did you have failure to eject out of the 50?
Oh, I'd say just about all of them. And there might, I think 1 out of 50 might have dribbled out of. Yeah. Otherwise, no, they were all stuck or sitting on top.
And I think we probably might have had 10 out of 50 that I ejected out of mine, right?
Yeah, and even those are not. Most of them are not ejecting that good.
Yeah. So this is Scott's bolt out of his 20-inch PSA 6.5 Grendel, and this is the bolt carrier group out of my 18-inch PSA 6.5 Grendel that I got roughly 2 years ago. So just a quick show you here, and I'm going to grab some brand new Starline brass. I can kind of eject this right out of the bolt face here. I'm just going to show you how this works. So obviously you got the extractor and the ejector spring here, and this flings this out of the bolt head. That's one. I'm going to grab another one here. You can see it's got a nice strength to it. It spins as it goes through the air. So my bolt, now here is Scott's bolt. And what I think is the problem is the ears on this extractor is just too prominent. It's too aggressive. And just like that, it flops backwards, not forwards, back into the upper receiver. Do one more. Well, where does that bring us up to this point in part 1 of the series? And I had to make a little note card here just to make sure I didn't forget anything. I'm just kind of harassing you, PSA, more than anything. I've actually had very, very good luck with PSA in the past. And this is kind of the first situation, especially when I got 2 firearms sent to me from PSA. One that PSA knew they were sending me, and one that they didn't, with my business partner, Scott Peterson, with his 20-inch upper. And, you know, it's one thing to have these kind of issues, but when the issues are identical on 2 6.5 Grendel PSA uppers, you know, it's something that we really need to take a look at. You know, number one would be obviously the extractor issues. I've kind of shown that that's probably the number one culprit of why these aren't functioning. And number 2 is I definitely think I could back off that powder charge. Probably shouldn't have started that high right out of the get-go. It seems like 6.5 Grendel is really acceptable to overcharging that powder charge. getting overpressure in that chamber and that bolt unlocking prematurely. So it's definitely something I'm gonna take a look at. I'm gonna bring that powder charge down, and I might actually take a look at that CFE 223. The thing is, I only have 1 pound of that powder CFE 223, and that's why we didn't start out with that in part 1 here, because we're just doing Fireform Headspace. I'm not totally concerned about accuracy like I mentioned earlier. You know, one of the big concerns here is that damn near 10,000ths of an inch Fireform Headspace. And you're gonna watch this headspace expand damn near 10,000ths of an inch.
So it looks like the brass, the bolt did lock back. The brass is still in the chamber, so let me clip you out here. So we still need to keep on adjusting this, but this did lock back. I can actually drop this magazine. So here's our piece of brass. I'm gonna hold that for a second, Scott.
And just to show you that this is zeroed out, right there, expanded exactly what his first 2 firings did, 1.2165, so we'll just say 217. Exactly that 217, and that's where getting Fireform brass is so important. Like I said, we're starting out with not only factory black ammunition at 1.207 and expanding clear up to 1.217 or 10,000ths of an inch increase in the Fireform. We're also seeing that with the Starline brass, like started at exactly the same headspace, 1.207 all the way up to damn near 1.2165. We might as well say 217, so 10,000ths of an inch. And that was in Scott's. Mine was roughly 9,000ths of an inch Fireform increase. You know, at least for me, especially most reloaders, you know, in a bolt action, if I start to see anywhere like 4, 5, maybe even 6,000ths of an inch Fireform increase from factory, you know, I start getting concerned. You know, I might let that slide in an AR, you know, 6, 7. Man, when it starts hitting that 7, I start to cringe. At 8, I'm starting to question it. 9 and 10, I'm getting very, very concerned. And anything over 10, I'm gonna send that thing back. I would say I'm a seasoned reloader. And there's a reason when it comes to bottleneck cartridges for a rifle, I don't use a case gauge. I use bump gauges. I reload for my rifle's chamber. I don't load for a case gauge. And I know there's a lot of, especially new reloaders, that reload for a case gauge. They don't use a bump gauge because they really have no clue what they're starting out at and ending up with for headspace in regards to Fireform brass. And if I said this before, I'll say it again, I don't use a case gauge. Matter of fact, I sold my case gauges for my bottleneck cartridges a long time ago. I reload for my rifle's chamber, not for a case gauge. And some of these new reloaders, and I know some seasoned reloaders that, no joke, use case gauges, and I guarantee you those guys would have been starting out at 1.207 with a Fireform clear to 217, 10,000 of an inch, and they would have bumped that probably right back another 10,000 just so it fits at a case gauge. Or doing some crazy stuff where they don't even use a case gauge or bump gauges, and they're just screwing that full length resizing down till it touches the shell plate and giving a quarter or a half a turn or some voodoo crap. You know, and that's an issue, especially PSA if you're listening to this. Those guys that are not using bump gauges would have easily Fireformed that 10,000ths of an inch, resized it back 10,000ths of an inch to fit in a case gauge, fire it back 10,000, resize it back 10,000. And whenever you resize that brass has to flow somewhere. And that's usually where your case length grows, and you trim it off, the walls of the brass get thinner, and that's where the case head separation comes into play. And like I said, when I start to see anything, especially over 8,000ths of an inch, I really start to cringe. And like I said, we were seeing easily 10,000ths of an inch Fireform headspace from brand new factory brass. So that's definitely something you're gonna keep an eye out for. The other thing was the inconsistent lands. Grossly inconsistent lands on both, not only my 12-inch 6.5 Grendel upper, but also damn near the identical inconsistent lands with a 20-inch. And I'm pretty sure that they're probably bored at the same time in the same machine, and that's why they show the exact same issues. And matter of fact, I'm going to feed in a video right now of not my high-end barrels. I'm not talking my Krieger. I'm not talking any Bartlein barrels, which have very consistent lands. I'm talking about the PSA 6.5 Creedmoor that I did about a year ago that was an absolute sub-MOA tack driver. Everything adds up. Matter of fact, I'm gonna patch that video feed in right now that was, I'm guessing, uploaded well over a year ago, and it'll show you how consistent the lands were on that sub-MOA tack driver right now.
And like I said, you guys are seeing this for the first time, just like me. Like I said, I've cleaned this and I haven't shot it yet. This is directly from the factory. And so we're getting close to the rifling lands here. It should be here pretty soon. So you're starting to run quite a bit of carbon and copper fouling here. So someone is, like I said, definitely has fired this. And
there's the rifling lands right there. So that's where the secant radius or the ogive of the bullet itself comes in contact with your rifling. And that's the rifling lands. It accepts the bullet into the rifle's bore and down the rifling and down the bore out the muzzle. And in comparison to the comparable inconsistent lands of both my 12-inch and the 20-inch PSA upper, you'll see that right now. All right, so this is the lands on the 12-inch. Now you can see we've got some pretty aggressive lands here on that side, and then on this side of the bore, they're not as aggressive. So this is Scott's 20-inch upper, and kind of the same thing. You can see that these lands here are way more aggressive all the way to the start of the bore, while these other lands over here feather out a heck of a lot more on the other side. So those lands in the 12-inch and 20-inch are damn near identical. Two of those lands are pretty much rifling right down to the bore. There's not much of a lands on that. And what happens with that is those lands are going to come in contact with the ogive or the secant radius of the bullet first in comparison to the other, most likely indenting the rifling heavily on that side, and you're just going to get inconsistent results out of that. Flyers. And it may affect it and it may not. You just don't know till you shoot it. But put it this way, it's not optimal. It really should be consistent. And adding that all up, not only the inconsistent lands, the 10,000th inch Fireform Headspace from brand new brass and factory brass. You know, obviously the extractor issues, I think that's an easy fix. Both identical. I think PSA, that's something you really got to look into. And with that being said, I did get a hold of PSA, expressed all these concerns. They actually sent me a shipping label to get this shipped back to them overnight. They are going to inspect not only the 12-inch, but the 20-inch, and they're going to check this out. If they can fix it, they can fix it. Otherwise, they're most likely, I would think, they'd have to send me back all completely new uppers. I'm telling you, I'll be checking those out too. Well, at least we got some Fireform brass. I'm pretty sure this is Fireform brass well past any mark that we need it to be. And what we'll have to do is get those new uppers back, which pretty much have all completely different headspace. And then we can bump back from that point 2,000 to 3,000 inches for a semi-auto AR. Well, I hope you guys have learned something, especially on how to identify issues, not only with headspace, extractors, what else? I mean, inconsistent lands, that's if you have a Borescope. Matter of fact, you check out the description box below. I have one of my Amazon affiliate links for that test-long Borescope. Highly recommend getting the portable screen one with the 36 flexible shaft. It seems like that's the one I've been using the most out of all my tests on Borescopes. It just works for everything. Very portable, easy to use. Other than that, I think this part one is too long enough as it is. I was hoping to bring you guys some valuable information on these reloads, but it is what it is. And stuff happens. Especially more inexpensive firearms like this from PSA, and I'm not saying that they make bad stuff, it's just they're pumping out with those numbers. Once in a while, I'm sure a lemon's gonna get through the cracks, but it's still something you need to keep an eye out for, not only for you, but for PSA. And when we get these, hopefully, new uppers back, I will definitely keep you guys informed with part two, and most likely, we might even do another live event reloading all this once again. Well, I hope you guys learned something. I know I learned something. I learn something every day. And hopefully you can bring this to the next generation. You guys appreciate this. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Hit that notification bell Become a Patreon. It helps out more than you know. And I will see you guys in part 2.